All right, what's up, Algebra 2? We're all here today. Oh, no, you don't like that. All right, we're all here today, and we're going to be talking about the homework. What did we do today? We did quadratic formula. We also reviewed factoring to solve. We also talked about the discriminant. Those are all things that you need to be able to do at this point. So maybe as a class, we can talk about number 1, and you can do number 2. Solve by factoring. So what multiplies to be negative 40? But when you add them together, you would get 3. Anybody know? What would that number combination be?
Negative 8 and 5.
Negative 8 and 5. Now, I like those numbers. They multiply to be 40. Actually, they multiply to be negative 40. But negative 8 plus 5. Yeah, so that doesn't give us 3. We really need a positive 8 and a negative 3. No, negative 5, sorry. 8 plus negative 5 is 3. 8 times negative 5 is negative 40. So I'm going to go ahead and say that this is factorable. Factorable means that you can change the way it's written, where if you multiplied it together, it would be what you started. So I'm going to put p plus 8, p minus 5 equals 0. So there's another step. If this is all you do, you didn't solve by factoring. Okay? You factored, but you didn't solve. Okay? Everybody good? Mm-hmm. So I'm going to take each part and separate it and do a quick solve for what would make that part 0. What would make the second part 0? Because if this is multiplying together and you replace that with a number that makes 0, it'll automatically multiply and kill everything to make 0 in the end. So what do we do to this and this? Subtract 8. So one of your solutions is negative 8. Sorry, think about the next one when I wrote that. And the other one should be positive 5. Let's add 5. Let's add 5. So those are your two solutions. Okay? Now I'm not going to do number 2. I'm trying to get you going, trying to support you, but what should you do first? Why? When you subtract 6, that creates a problem that is trying to get you to figure out what makes it equal 0. So this is an initial step that this one does not have. That's what makes this one level up in difficulty. So go ahead, whenever you get a chance, factor that, set each part equal to 0, and solve it. Okay? Questions on that? Just nod or raise your hand. All right, good luck on that one tomorrow. All right, quadratic formula. Make sure that you have your notes from today. Negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So I'll come back and finish doing that. I'll pause the video here in just a minute, and I'll do 2 of those tonight. Whenever we get home, you'll see that there's going to be more than just what I'm doing now. Next, what is the discriminant and what does it do? If you could, up here put like how many or something like that, because that word discriminant should tell you like how many solutions. And sometimes in the question it's talking about like the number of solutions, and so that should key you off. That should help you remember that, oh, I'm supposed to be doing the discriminant. So that's 9 squared minus 4 times 2 times 7. So quick review. If it comes out to be positive, how many solutions? 2 real. How do you get 2 imaginary? If it comes out to be a negative. Now, it can be a difficult thing to remember, but if you get 0 and it's 1 real, if it's exactly 0, you get 1 real solution. Okay? All right, so let's finish out some quadratic formula. I'm going to do 3 and 5, and I want you to do 4 and 6, along with number 2, finish number 2, and also number 8. Okay, so here we go. So quadratic formula. The whole point of using the quadratic formula is just a rote process of trying to figure out like what value replaces the variable to make the quadratic end up being 0. Okay, so we're going to start by identifying A, B, and C. A is 6, B is negative 9, and C is 3. So notice that that negative has to be a part of identifying whether the values are positive or negative. So now, kind of going through what we did today, talking about the quadratic formula, b has to flip signs. So it's really positive 9. Right here you have negative b. And so if you're talking about negative 9, that's changing it to a positive 9. Okay? I'm going to now calculate what's called the discriminant. The discriminant ultimately only tells you how many solutions there are based on the sign of b squared minus 4ac when you calculate it. So we have b, which is negative 9 squared. You must put that value in parentheses using calculators. Minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2a. And a is actually the number 6 here. So let's go ahead and replace a with the number 6. Now notice I haven't picked up a calculator yet. The process for most formulas needs to be taking a moment to put it into the formula and then take as many steps as you need to shrink it down. And so when I teach this, I try to teach the concept of how to put it in as quickly as possible without risking messing the problem up or missing the problem entirely. So negative 9 squared minus 4 times a times c. I want to double check that I got those values correctly. Negative 9 squared minus 4 times 6 times 3. All that looks good. So it looks like my discriminant value is 9. Let's put that in the bottom corner here. So now, as an organization to this in terms of keeping up with where you are in the problem, this is 9 still, plus minus the square root of 9, and that 9 just came from the calculator that we just got, and then 2 times 6 is 12. Now, one thing I noticed, some people, they would say, oh, well, the square root of 9, that's a perfect square, and that's 3, and they would make a mistake here, so this is wrong. 9 plus the square root of 3. No. Okay. The square root of 9 is 3. So if you're simplifying them to calculate it, you can do it that way, but don't leave the square root over something when you calculate it. Okay? So, 9 plus 3 would be 12, and if you divide that by 12, you're getting 1. So just to kind of show you, if we had just left it with the square root of 9, type it in the top part first. See, that does give you 12, because really this is 9 plus 3, 12, and then divided by 12, of course, that gives you 1. So let's go back in and do the other way. Let's say you're doing 9 minus the square root of 9. And again, square root of 9 is 3, so 9 minus the square root of 9 should be 6. And you divide that by 12, and you're getting 0.5. Now, 0.5 is 1/2. 0.5 represents 50% or half, so that would probably be a better answer here. So 6 out of 12 when you went and did the minus problem. Okay, and that gives you 0.5 or 1/2. Okay, so a lot of teachers really want you to do the fractions. I want you to really be able to do anything based on the directions that are available to you, and that's really the best skill you could have, is just to be able to do whatever's asked of you. So let's do another one. When you see this right here, this means that b, or whatever that value is, it's really -1. Okay, that's a -1. Don't put x in the formula. The formula should only contain numbers, no variables. Okay, so we've got a is 5. We also have c to be -22. So here we go. Negative b, -1, +1, plus minus the square root of -1 squared. That's our b squared, minus 4 times a times c. All of that is being divided by 2a, or 2 times 5. Okay? So, when we're talking about using the discriminant, our goal is to determine how many solutions we have. When we did the first one, we got 9 under there. Because 9 was positive, we ultimately got 2 real solutions. So look at the notes to refer to that if you forget, like if there's 2 real, there's 2 imaginary, like what signs go with that. So let's take a moment to calculate -1 squared minus 4 times 5 times -22. So 2 key parts here. Make sure that you square negative numbers with the 2 on the outside. Remember that it's a minus between them, not a negative. That'll force you to multiply them if you put a negative there. 4 times 5, and then that's negative 22. So it's always worth checking to make sure, like, did I really put in all the signs correct? Because you'll have to do it again, which is ultimately making it longer if you mistype something. So going at an appropriate speed here, that's really the square root of 441. So I should expect to get a solution here. In fact, I should get 2. 2 times 5, that makes 10. So let's stop and calculate what this is, and I'll do it in parts using the plus. Let's see what the sum gives us. 1 plus the square root of 441 is 22. But remember, we have to divide that by whatever's in the bottom for 2a, and in our problem it's 10. So one of our values is 2.2. When we do the adding, we're getting 2.2. So let's take a moment to subtract. Let's see what we get when we do 1 minus the square root of 441. And that gives us negative 20. We're dividing by 10, and that would give us negative 2. So those are our two solutions. Okay. So like I said, I want you to try 4 and 6 on your own. I didn't do 4 or 6. So these are problems that I expect you to attempt on your own. And when I come in tomorrow, I want to check to see those specifically. If you only do the ones that I do in the video, then you will not get half credit. I mean, you won't get full credit. You only get half credit. So really looking for these 2 problems to be completed. I mean, accuracy doesn't matter. I'm just looking to see what you tried so I can kind of correct your thinking if you miss it. I can't correct it if you don't do it, though. And then I did not complete this problem number 2. Okay. So, good luck. Let me know if you have any questions. Email me if you have any questions. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow. All right. Peace, you guys.